Welcome to Spotlight Chat, a conversation with leaders.
Our special guest today on Spotlight Chat is Yvonne Alley. She is a 7th grade and 11th grade English and college prep teacher at Coral Academy. What's different about this school?
Well, we're a charter school. We started approximately 9 years ago. This is our 7th year on this campus that we're down in Henderson. And we're unique, I guess, basically because we offered an alternative to all the public schools at the time. We were the first charter out there in Henderson. And we started with really small class sizes, which was awesome in the beginning. It was under 20. Now we're kind of hitting 30. But we're not hopefully going over 30. So I guess that's what makes us most unique, and also our penchant to educate them first in math and science and then everything else secondary.
You are known for your math and science and technology expertise. You're teaching English. How do you get people excited about English if their first interest is in math and science?
Well, generally those learners tend to be kinesthetic and logical mathematical learners. I'm a big person on learning styles, so I do a lot of hands-on. I try and make English as hands-on as humanly possible. So we'll put signs on our bodies and run around the classroom and fit ourselves together sometimes, and they'll do Play-Doh, and we'll do a lot of things that are outside of the standard English classroom.
The Play-Doh, the stuff with flour that you can mold, or you're studying the philosopher Plato?
No, actually Play-Doh that you would play with.
And they're both good. They're both perfectly fine.
No, I'd be a little high advanced for 7th grade, but possibly.
And what do parents need to know if their children are in your class?
Well, that I'm not a normal English teacher. I hate to say normal, but a lot of my kids always say, well, Miss Alley's class is always different and interesting, and she looks at English in a different way. And I like that, because then they're not, a lot of kids have a lot of fear of English. They haven't done very well in it, especially if they're really excelling in math and science. So for me, for them to just try and look at it not as like English, but just as another way of learning language. So if we could do that in my classroom, that would be great, and not to be afraid of it.
The rap on a lot of young kids these days is that A, they either don't read, or B, if they do read, it's only Harry Potter. How do you get people excited about reading?
I do a learning survey when they come in, so I try and find out the things that they love. I read a letter to them about me, and they read a letter back, and I try and find out what they really love. Some love action, some love adventure, a few like romance. So I try and blend that into most of the books. We read heavily in my class. We read 4 to 6 novels a year. And I try and get them protagonists and antagonists that are around their age level so they can identify with them. And they're from all walks of life. We've done Afghanistan literature. We've done, in the past, right now we're reading Al Capone Does My Shirts. And that takes place in the 1930s in Alcatraz. So,
how do you get someone prepared for college, especially if they come from a family where they're the first generation going to college, and especially if college is just not a part of the conversation, it's not a shared experience with parents, grandparents, and other family?
I think you have to look at it as a goal. We have this amazing person in our lower grade called Mr. Perry, and he's like the school counselor, and he leads cheers about going to college. And I think if you can start them young with the idea that you are going to college, and college isn't the be-all, end-all nowadays, to be honest with you. And I tell my children that, which is probably not what the administration wants to hear, but really, if you have an amazing idea and you want to be an entrepreneur, you still need to have these skills. And so it's more about developing the skills to develop into the kind of person you want to be as an adult. So what I try and get them to look at is you need to think critically. If we can get enough critical thinking tools into their brains, we've got it covered.
And thinking critically, but also the practice of constantly learning, lifelong skills, because you can go to college, you can get a degree from MIT. If you're not continuing to learn, you're going to be obsolete in your field, in almost any field, within a few years. No,
you're absolutely right about that. I think also a lot of group work, because a lot of the trends that I've been seeing with employment, because teaching wasn't my first vocation. I worked in newspaper and dental hygiene, a bunch of different things. And I noticed that a lot of it involved around communication and being able to bounce ideas off of everybody. And so if I can teach them to interact with people, not necessarily agree with everyone, but learn kind of how to disagree in an amicable fashion, if they can learn how to do that and work with other people, whether it's via web or via, video conference or just person to person, then I think that's a skill that they really need to have.
How successful are you at really teaching young students to write a good essay? You hear constantly from admissions counselors at even Ivy League universities like Columbia say the quality of written essays is pretty low, and that's among top students. When
I got to this school, I totally changed the way I taught writing. I chunk writing, and I really let them know, like, okay, in this paragraph, you're going to need these 5 sentences, and these 5 sentences, you need to talk about this. And it's almost like the hamburger laying sort of style, where you start with, like, your hook or your introduction. You better have a good-looking bun. And then the lettuce and the cheese are all the details, and then you get down to the meat, and you must support your meat. And then you have your bun on the end, and that's kind of like your transition to get to your next. But I think if you break things down for kids, it makes it easier for them. I have kids that come back to me in 9th, 10th, 11th grade and go, hey, can you give me your outline? Because I got to write another essay. And I go, it's got to be a lot longer. Yeah, I'll just add more cheese. But they get it. They understand what they're doing because I've used this model.
Now, some parents listening to the podcast today, when they think writing, they think back when they were in school, and they may have literally written out with a pen. Maybe they typed it. If they typed it, perhaps not using a computer, but having to get the little white out and do it. It's not like that anymore. Students have technology. They're presumably not just handwriting it for you. How has technology helped the writing process, but has it made people lazier too?
Well, I think it's made people lazier because they think they can get away with writing less if they just type it.
Large font.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I've seen 16 fonts before. But I think what I do is I give them it in an electronic format. They still have to fill out the lines. I'll go, well, you filled out 1 line on this. You still need to fill out the 3. You got to flesh it out. I think technology is as good as the teacher that's prepping it. If you can give anybody like anything that's superb, but if they don't have the tools to use it, it's kind of fruitless.
Yvonne Alley of Choral Academy, based here in Las Vegas. We're coming to you today from the greater Las Vegas area. Thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight Chat, a conversation with leaders.